Hi everyone, my name is Zainab Maleki and I'm a DevOps engineer at Mechanical Rock. Today I want to talk to you about AWS Service Catalog. And I have a demo. I called my demo Automation Gone Wild. If you have used AWS Service Catalog before or heard about it, it might be a bit of repetition at the start, but hopefully the demo will make up for it. So the Mechanical Rock that I work for is a consultancy firm and we're one of the AWS partners. And because of that, I get to work with a lot of AWS services as well as go and work for different clients. Working for different clients and different companies in the past 5 years have allowed me to see a trend in the industry. For example, 5 years ago, there was a lot of talks going about DevOps, what DevOps is, what CI/CD tools we should use, what automation, what to automate and what not to. And then the same was going around 3-4 years ago for using cloud services. A lot of talk about the benefit and advantages that you get out of the cloud services, which cloud providers you have to choose, and what services does it provide. But today's challenge that I see around, it's not about telling people what DevOps is or cloud services is, because they already know, they already picked up the techniques and technologies. For example, companies have already decided on a choice of cloud provider and they're going with DevOps front and center of everything they do. Today's challenge is about the learning curve. So because these cloud services, they have transformed the way that we work. There is a lot of new services and it keeps growing and growing. And a lot of things for people to upskill and to learn. And because of that deep learning curve, people start to develop different patterns. But that I mean because everyone are learning at the same time, there is no best practices or there is no other people with lots of experience that you can go to and ask for help for to ask like, is this the way that you're supposed to use it? Is there a better way? Am I doing it? What's the best practice? It comes with a lot of experience and that's what we don't have because it's moving really fast and we're just learning. And also because people are learning at the same time, that learning curve is very repetitive. Imagine you're working for an enterprise organization and then you're going to be using AppSync, DynamoDB, React App, and the static site deployment. So you have to learn how to create your CI/CD, how to automate your deployments, and then also how to set up CloudFront, how do you set up your infrastructure as code, and what's AppSync, what's DynamoDB, how do you structure your single table GSIs. A lot to learn. Tomorrow, another team comes up and they want to use the same technologies. They have to learn everything over and again. Because as much as you want to knowledge share, you want to document things in Confluence, there's so much you can do because you've also had a deadline and you also need to deliver your projects. Also, how does the other team know that you have done it so they can come and approach you? We're talking about a big enterprise organization with 3,000 plus employees or even like 100 plus employees. It's really difficult to keep track of who has done what. And another challenge is people start developing different choice of tooling. Because our lives wasn't difficult enough, they made so many different tools for achieving the same thing. For example, for infrastructure deployment, some people choose to go with manual ClickUps. Just because it's easy, they do console ClickUps. Some people choose to go with CDK and just because it looks like a proper development language. Some people go with CloudFormation just because they're used to it, and I'm one of those. Some people go with AWS SAM If they want to deploy a Lambda API gateway, SAM does it all for them. And other people decide to go with third parties such as Terraform. So as you see, there's lots of different choice for a single thing, and people start to have inconsistency within the same organization. So today's challenge is a lot about thinking, how do I create a template? How do I reuse it within my organization? How do I share the knowledge that I've got around so people don't have to do it? And how do we avoid this repetitive approval process that was done already for a similar architecture? And how do we bring consistency? And that's where we come to AWS Service Catalog. AWS Service Catalog is a service that helps you to template your infrastructure. You create a CloudFormation template, and then you create a product out of it and version it. Once you create the product, you put it inside a portfolio, and that portfolio can include multiple products. Then you can share your portfolio either with AWS organization or with a specific account. If you do it through the master account with AWS organization, it's a lot faster because you don't have to import it. If you do it with specific account number, you have to specifically define the account number, as well as that account has to import your service catalog product within the account. So a little bit more process. And that's where I get to my demo. For my demo, I've prepared a complete CI/CD for building a static site with React. So what I've done is I created a service catalog product that creates a code commit repository, and then that triggers stuff that goes and creates a pipeline, a CloudFront, host your template React app, and it's all done within a click of launch product. So the architecture of what I've done looks something like this. This part of it is the template. So it's a template for creating static site React app. You have a pipeline, and then that pipeline will trigger creation of CloudFront and S3 bucket. Then there is a code build that goes and copies the React app code inside this S3 bucket. And then it's again distributed through CloudFront. So that part is repeating. If you have created the static site before React App's static site, this is very similar for everything. So the way I've made it very generic without passing any parameters to it, without any specification. And then I zipped it all, put it inside the S3 bucket. Then my AWS Service Catalog template provisions three things. One is code commit. So this code commit will get an initial commit from that S3 bucket. So it gets the template source code. And then there is an event bridge that listens to that code commit master branch creation. It only happens once. Once it happens, then it goes and triggers a code build. And that code build job creates parameter file. So again, as I said, this template is generic. It doesn't have parameters. The parameters comes from a user. When they're launching a product, they have to enter the parameter. These parameters are not stored anywhere. So you have to kind of go back and store it back within that code commit repository to make it specific to the user. For example, that CloudFront name, that bucket name, the domain name, everything that you need, that comes from the parameter. So what this code build do is create a JSON file out of the parameters that are passed as an environment variable to it, and then pushes that JSON file back to the repo. Pushes it back to the repo. And then it creates the code pipeline stack. So it will trigger this creation of AWS code pipeline stack, and the rest of resources are created by the pipeline. The code for the creation of this pipeline is within that code commit, and the source to this code build, again, it's that code commit. So from there onwards, this automatic trigger of the code commit and code pipeline is created. So once the user launches this product, they will be able to manage everything themselves. They have a repo, which is automatically set up with a pipeline, and then it sets up your React app complete end to end. Now, let's go through the code. So inside the code, the way that I've set it up, so as I said, for service catalog, the admin part, when you create that product, you have to create a portfolio, then you create a product, and then for the product, you have to reference your template with a version number. So the template URL for me is a S3 bucket that my pipeline already puts the file of my template in there. So the file exists here, so the pipeline automatically puts whatever it's inside here inside that base S3 bucket. And then that's where my code is for the product, which I reference it through here. And the version it, once you have created the product, you create an association between the product and a template. And it's that easy. That's all you need to do to create service catalog product. Then I am gonna go and trigger and launch a product, because of the time that launching a product will take some time. So I go to AWS. Because of the time, I have already created my service catalog product and shared it. So all you need to do as an end user that I want to use that product, I'll go and launch a product. Give it a provision product name, superhero app. Thanks. And this is where you pass parameters. For me, I've got only one parameter just to make it easy, but you can have so many. My project name, there you go, superhero app. Next, launch. So as I said, this will create a code commit and a code build and event trigger. Code build, code commit. So for now, let's just have a look at that. There is nothing, but it will get created. If I show you the template, the service catalog template, there you go. This is the definition of the code build that is creating. And then I'll pass environment variable, that project name that was passed into the service catalog. I'll pass it to the environment variable of the code build. Then I've got a code commit repository that gets the initial commit from a zip folder in S3 bucket. That's the initial code to the code commit repository. And the repository name is that project name again, so you keep it consistent. And this event rule, that event bridge, it's listening to code commit master branch changes. Command B. So there you go. The target is the code build, and then the event pattern is basically listening to the branch master when the event is reference create. So it's when the branch master is getting created in that code commit repository. Right, let's go back and see. This is our code build created, superhero initial parameter commit. And if I look into the build of this, So this is creating the parameter file. No, that is creating the parameter file. As you see, it created it. Then it goes and does AWS code commit put file. So it puts it inside the AWS. Once it's committed to AWS, then it does create stack. So AWS CloudFormation create a stack, and the stack that is creating is the pipeline stack, right? So that is already triggered. If I look into code commit, now that superhero code commit should be created. Then if I look into CloudFormation stack, this is the pipeline stack. So once this is created, then there will be a code commit and there will be a code pipeline, which we'll get to see. But before going there, I wanted to show you, I launched the product manually through the console, but you can also trigger launch of product through CloudFormation. So all you need to do is you say CloudFormation provision product. This is the resource type that you want to create. Product name, so that has to be the same product name that is shared with you. Version number that you want to deploy, and then you pass in your parameters, right? So I've created 2. Let's go and build this at the same time too. For that, I'll need my credentials. Zainab Maleki. Right. And then let's go and do this. And so basically what I did was I've created a stack, this stack. I've created this stack to create me 2 different provision products. One is my static site 1, one is my static site 2. So with this 2, I will be provisioning 3 static site. One static site 1, static site 2, and the superhero one. So let's go and have a look where superhero is at in the CloudFormation. So you can see the other 2 service catalog has been triggered, and the pipeline is completed. So if we go to code pipeline, the pipeline creation is completed. This is superhero app pipeline. So now it's going through this to set up the stages. One stage is administering the pipeline itself. So if the users, they decide to change it in future, add more stages into it, more environment, they can do so, because all of this code is within that code commit repository and they have full access to change it. Then this is deploying the infrastructure, the cloud front end stuff, and that's deploying the website. So while this is happening, I'll go to my presentation, and then at the end we can come back and see what happens, because CloudFront will take some time. Alright, so go back to the presentation. The use cases, there is so much you can take out and do and take from service catalog. For example, creating EC2 instances with approved AMI. So you cannot allow any role in your AWS organization to create EC2 instances. The only role that has access to create EC2 instances is the one that is attached to the launch constraint of AWS Service Catalog. When you create a product, you can create a launch constraint, attach a role to it, and then you will use that role to provision products. So in that case, you're restricting some stuff, like for example creation of EC2 instances. The other thing is a CI/CD pipeline for app development or API development, similar to what I've done. It will be so quick for teams to start developing. SageMaker Notebook instances for your data scientists, because every data scientist, they need a different SageMaker Notebook instance, so you can create a product and then allow them to provision. CI/CD for ML workflow data pipelines. There is so much you can do. There's no limit. You just have to find the best scenarios. The other thing is things to consider when using Service Catalog. One is find your use case, think about it carefully, and think how it adds value and where it adds value. It doesn't suit every use case. For example, I completely disagree having a pipeline created from Service Catalog. I didn't create my pipeline from the Service Catalog product, because as soon as you do that, the end user wouldn't be able to change that pipeline. It's managed within the Service Catalog stack. And then you take away and restrict your users to be able to add things to their pipeline, change it the way they want. They have to put everything within a code builder, or within what you allow within the pipeline. So don't do it. Think about what's usable and what's not usable. The other thing is, don't make it a restriction. Service Catalog should be optional. It should be an enabler. It should help your users to get on faster, to get examples, to get patterns of doing things, and to make them achieve what they want to achieve a lot faster. It shouldn't be a restriction, because in that case you're taking the creativity away from your developers. Don't do that. And yeah, as I said, the goal is to speed up the development, share the knowledge around, and just make it useful where it can be. Let your imagination go wild, and there's so much you can do with Service Catalog. You can create a template out of that, trigger an event, the event goes with step function, do other things, like do whatever you need to do and automate the whole end-to-end process. And that's it. Let's go back before going to the questions. Let's go back and check our pipeline. So this shouldn't take much longer. So that sets up a CloudFront, right? So this infrastructure builds a CloudFront, and I can go to my CloudFront and have a look. So this is the superhero one that has been created. The other two are still on the way. If you click on your CloudFront, I haven't set up a DNS for it, but there is default DNS that CloudFront has. Then you can open it and see. So at the moment it's not set up yet, it's not built, because the code hasn't been copied into the S3 bucket. So the last bit is deploying and copying the code into S3 bucket, and that hasn't been done. Once that's done, then we will not get a 4.4, hopefully. So while that's happening, we can check our CloudFormation for the other two. So there you go. The pipeline for my static site test 1 and test 2 also has been created. If I look into the list of the pipelines, now I'll see 3 of them. Superhero 1 and the other 2. And they all are happening. So you can instantiate as many as you want from this. This template is very generic. Just give it a project name and it will set up everything for you. All the end users will have to do is literally waiting for this to be completed, waiting for their pipeline to be succeeded. And then once it is, it's already deployed their template. All they need to do, go to code commit, go to their repository, clone, and start using it. The whole code is inside this template app, and that's the React code. All they need to do is start changing this React app and it will work perfectly for that. Let's give that a try again. Right, not yet. Not yet, not yet. And I want to show you this code build as well. There you go, it's running a npm run build. It's done an npm install first and then npm run build, and then it's doing AWS copy, AWS S3 copy. And once that's completed, which is just now, then this pipeline should be green, and that should not give me a 404 anymore. Yay! So there you go, the template has been built and already made for that. So you can use this as template things with your company's logo. You can template it with your color scheme, your style sheet, and then people will start just using what's available and the pattern that has been created. I guess that's it for me for the demo, and yeah, please fire off if you have any questions. Thank you very much for listening.